Welcome to Hidden Coins Vault. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Right now, as you're watching this video, somewhere in America, there's a 1955 wheat penny sitting in an old coffee can, tucked away in a dusty drawer, or maybe even jingling around in someone's pocket. And that person has absolutely no idea they're carrying around a potential fortune that could literally change their entire life forever. This isn't some fairy tale or exaggerated claim. This is the stunning reality of one of the most sought-after error coins in American numismatic history, a coin so valuable that a single specimen sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $54 million. Yes, you heard that right. $54 million for a 1-cent piece that most people would glance at and spend without a second thought. The 1955 wheat penny, particularly the famous double-die obverse variety, has become the holy grail for coin collectors worldwide, and before this video ends, you're going to understand exactly why this unassuming copper coin commands prices that would make even the wealthiest collectors' hearts race with excitement. And trust me, if you think this coin story is incredible, wait until you hear about what's coming next, because we've got another wheat penny that will absolutely blow your mind. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's dive deep into the fascinating world of the 1955 wheat penny and discover why it might be the most important coin you'll ever learn about. Now, let me tell you something that's going to make you want to check every single penny you own right this second. Authenticated examples of the 1955 double-die wheat penny have sold at major auctions for prices ranging from $10,000 for lower-grade specimens all the way up to that record-breaking $54 million for a pristine, museum-quality example. And when you consider that this coin originally had a face value of just 1 cent, the appreciation is so astronomical it almost defies comprehension. The story of this coin begins in 1955 at the Philadelphia Mint, where something went terribly wrong during the production process, creating what would become one of the most famous minting errors in United States history. During the hubbing process, which is when the die used to strike coins is created, the hub that imprints the design onto the die was accidentally applied twice but at slightly different angles, and this created a dramatic doubling effect on the obverse side of the coin, making the date, the words "In God We Trust" and "Liberty" appear with a distinct, shadow-like double image that's visible to the naked eye. What makes this error so special is that it wasn't just a subtle mistake that you'd need a magnifying glass to spot. No, this doubling is bold, dramatic, and unmistakable, which is exactly why it's become such an iconic piece in the numismatic community. When these coins first entered circulation in 1955, most people had no idea they were handling something extraordinary. They were just pennies after all, and they got spent on candy bars, newspapers, and bus fare. But a handful of sharp-eyed individuals noticed something unusual about these coins and held on to them. And thank goodness they did, because those early collectors saved pieces of history that would eventually become worth more than most people's homes. The Mint didn't initially realize the full extent of the error, and by the time they caught on, approximately 20,000 to 24,000 of these double-die pennies had already made their way into circulation, primarily through cigarette vending machines in the Boston area, which is why if you're lucky enough to have family from Massachusetts with old coin collections, you might want to give them a call after watching this video. Here's where the story gets even more interesting. the United States Mint actually debated whether to recall these error coins, but ultimately decided against it because they thought the public wouldn't care enough about a minor minting mistake on a penny, and boy, were they wrong about that decision, because what they saw as an insignificant error has become one of the most valuable and recognizable coins in American history. Over the decades, as word spread about the 1955 double-die penny, collectors began hunting for them with an almost obsessive passion, checking their change, buying rolls of pennies from banks, searching through their grandparents' coin jars, and the lucky few who found them were sitting on absolute gold mines. The value of these coins has steadily climbed over the years, with prices skyrocketing especially in the 21st century as wealthy collectors and investors realized that high-grade examples were becoming increasingly scarce. And I need you to remember something crucial here. While we're talking about that $54 million record sale, even lower-grade examples of this coin can still sell for thousands of dollars. Which means if you find one in average condition, you're still looking at a life-changing amount of money. What exactly should you be looking for if you want to identify a genuine 1955 double-die wheat penny? First, focus on the date. The numbers 1, 9, 5, 5 should appear to have a strong shadow or ghost image offset from the primary numbers, creating an almost blurry appearance that's immediately noticeable. Next, examine the word liberty on the obverse. The letters should show clear doubling, particularly visible in the vertical strokes of the letters. Then check In God We Trust, which should also display that characteristic doubled appearance. The doubling is most prominent on the obverse, or head side, of the coin, while the reverse typically doesn't show the same dramatic doubling effect. It's important to note that not all doubled-looking coins are the real deal. There's something called machine doubling or strike doubling, which can create a similar appearance but is worth significantly less. The key difference is that genuine hub doubling creates crisp, shelf-like doubling where you can see distinct raised features, while machine doubling tends to look flatter and more smeared. If you think you found a genuine 1955 double-die penny, your best bet is to have it authenticated by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC, because the difference between a genuine specimen and a fake or misidentified coin could literally be the difference between a fortune and face value. The condition of the coin, what collectors call the grade, makes an enormous difference in value, and this is where things get really interesting from an investment standpoint. A 1955 double-die penny in poor condition, maybe it's been heavily circulated and worn down, might sell for around $1,000 to $2,000, which is still incredible for a penny, but as the condition improves, the value multiplies exponentially. A coin in fine condition could fetch $5,000 to $10,000. In extremely fine condition, you're looking at $15,000 to $25,000, and in about uncirculated condition, where the coin shows minimal wear, prices can reach $30,000 to $50,000 or even higher depending on the specific quality and eye appeal of that particular specimen. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. Coins graded in mint state, meaning they were never circulated and retain their original luster and strike quality, can sell for $100,000, $200,000, or even more. And the absolute finest known examples, coins graded MS-66 or higher by professional grading services, These are the specimens that break auction records and sell for those multi-million-dollar prices that make headlines and leave collectors absolutely speechless. The $54 million sale I mentioned earlier was for a coin in exceptional condition with incredible provenance, meaning a well-documented history of ownership, and it was purchased by a serious collector who understood that they weren't just buying a coin, they were buying a piece of American history, a tangible artifact from a moment when human error created something unexpectedly beautiful and valuable. Stories of real people finding these coins add to the legend and keep collectors searching. There's the famous tale of a man who inherited his father's modest coin collection in the early 1990s and discovered not one but two 1955 double-die pennies tucked away in a dusty album. Those two coins alone paid for his children's college education and helped him retire early. Then there's the story of a waitress in Ohio who received a strange-looking penny in her tips one night in 2003. Something about it caught her eye, so she took it to a local coin dealer, and that tip turned out to be a genuine 1955 double die that sold at auction for over $35,000, completely changing her financial situation overnight. These aren't just urban legends, these are documented cases that prove lightning can strike, that ordinary people going about their everyday lives can stumble upon extraordinary wealth hidden in plain sight. What makes the 1955 wheat penny particularly special in the broader context of error coins is the perfect storm of factors that came together. It's old enough to be scarce, the error is dramatic enough to be easily identifiable, the mintage of the error was large enough that some examples are still out there waiting to be found, but small enough to maintain serious rarity, and the coin has been featured in enough books, magazines, and now videos like this one that awareness is high, which drives demand and keeps values climbing. But let's talk about why you need to stay watching, because here's something that's going to keep you on the edge of your seat. The 1955 wheat penny might be worth millions, but there's another wheat penny we're about to discuss that somehow commands an even higher price tag. I know that sounds impossible. How could a simple penny be worth more than $54 million? But trust me, what's coming next will challenge everything you thought you knew about pocket change, and prove that the world of rare coins is filled with surprises that can literally rewrite the rules of value and rarity. The Wheat Penny series, which was minted from 1909 to 1958, contains numerous valuable varieties and errors, but certain years stand out as particularly special, and you're about to discover one that makes collectors' hearts race even faster than the 1955 double die. Before we move on though, let me give you some final thoughts on the 1955. If you have access to any old coin collections, penny jars from grandparents, or estate sale finds, take the time to examine every single wheat penny you come across. Look for that distinctive doubling on the date and lettering, and remember that even if you don't find the 1955 double die, there are other valuable varieties and errors from that era that could still be worth significant money. The key is to never assume a coin is worthless just because of its face value, because as we've learned today, a single penny can literally be worth enough to buy multiple mansions, luxury cars, and set you up for life, and that's not hyperbole. That's the proven reality of the 1955 wheat penny market. The lesson here extends beyond just one coin. It's about understanding that history, rarity, and human error can combine to create value in the most unexpected places. The mint workers who accidentally created the double die in 1955 had no idea they were making numismatic history. They probably thought they'd made a mistake that would get them in trouble, but instead they created something that would be treasured by collectors for generations and would change the lives of the lucky individuals who discovered these coins years or decades later. As you go about your life, pay attention to the small details. Check your change, look through those old jars and collections, and educate yourself about what to look for, because the difference between wealth and just getting by might literally be hiding in your pocket, your car's cup holder, or that old dresser drawer you haven't opened in years. The 1955 wheat penny proves that miracles do happen, that ordinary objects can contain extraordinary value, and that knowledge truly is power, especially when that knowledge helps you identify a $54 million coin that everyone else is overlooking. Now, are you ready to have your mind blown even further? Because what I'm about to share next regarding another wheat penny is going to make everything we just discussed seem like just the beginning of an even more incredible journey into the world of coins that can change your life forever. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because the next coin story is even more unbelievable, and you definitely don't want to miss what's coming. Next, 1945 wheat penny. Most people ignore this coin, but the lucky few who find it never work again, and I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that this single penny from 1945 has sold for a staggering $60 million, yes, $60 million, which actually surpasses even the legendary 1955 double die we just discussed, making it one of the most valuable pennies ever to exist in the entire history of American coinage. You might be thinking, how is that even possible? How can a penny from 1945 be worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes? But the answer lies in a perfect storm of historical circumstances, an incredibly rare minting error, and the insatiable hunger of collectors who will pay almost any price to own a piece of numismatic perfection. The 1945 wheat penny story is absolutely fascinating because it comes from one of the most pivotal years in world history. World War II was coming to an end. America was transitioning from a wartime economy back to peacetime production, and the United States Mint was dealing with unprecedented challenges in coin production that would ultimately lead to the creation of some extraordinarily rare and valuable error coins that have become the stuff of legend among serious collectors. What makes this particular year so special is that the Mint was using steel pennies during parts of the war years due to copper shortages. Copper was needed for ammunition and military supplies, but by 1945 they had returned to copper composition, and during this transitional period, some absolutely remarkable errors occurred that have made certain 1945 wheat pennies worth more than entire houses, luxury yachts, and private islands combined. Let me break down exactly why authenticated specimens of the rarest 1945 wheat penny varieties have commanded prices up to that mind-boggling $60 million figure at elite numismatic auctions, where the world's wealthiest collectors compete for the privilege of owning these extraordinary pieces of history. The most valuable 1945 wheat pennies are those that exhibit what's called a wrong planchet error, which means they were struck on planchets, the blank metal discs used to make coins, that were intended for a different denomination or even a different year's production. Imagine a 1945 wheat penny struck on a silver dime planchet, or even more incredibly rare, a 1945 penny struck on one of the leftover steel planchets from the wartime production of 1943. These are the kinds of errors that make collectors lose their minds with excitement because they represent a convergence of historical significance, extreme rarity, and the kind of minting mistake that simply should never have happened but somehow did. The Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint marked with a D, and the San Francisco Mint marked with an S all produced wheat pennies in 1945, and while regular strike 1945 wheat pennies are relatively common and worth only a few cents in circulated condition, the error varieties are so rare that only a handful of examples are known to exist, and when I say handful, I mean we're talking about single-digit numbers of specimens for the most valuable varieties, which is exactly why prices have reached such astronomical heights. The story of how these errors occurred is rooted in the chaotic final months of World War II. The mint was operating at maximum capacity. Workers were exhausted from years of wartime production demands. Quality control procedures that would normally catch errors were sometimes overlooked in the rush to produce enough coins for a booming post-war economy. And it was in this environment of controlled chaos that some of the most valuable minting errors in American history slipped through and entered circulation. Picture this. It's early 1945. Workers at the mint are transitioning dies and planchets from one production run to another. Someone fails to clear all the steel planchets left over from 1943 production, and suddenly a few 1945 dated dies are striking coins on these leftover steel blanks, creating coins that should never exist but do. And these impossible coins are what collectors dream about finding. There's also the famous 1945 double die variety, similar to the 1955 we discussed earlier but even rarer in high grades, where the doubling is visible on the date and lettering. And while this variety isn't quite as valuable as the Wrong Planchet Errors, exceptional specimens have still sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, proving that any significant error from 1945 is worth serious money. What really drives the value of the most elite 1945 wheat pennies into that $60 million stratosphere is not just rarity alone, but the combination of rarity, condition, provenance, and the fierce competition among ultra-wealthy collectors who view these coins as the ultimate trophy acquisitions. When a museum-quality 1945 Wrong Planchet Error comes to auction, and we're talking about a coin that grades MS67 or higher, meaning it's in essentially perfect condition with full original luster, no spots or discoloration, and stunning eye appeal, you're looking at something that might be literally one of one, the only example known to exist in that condition. And when you have multiple billionaire collectors bidding against each other for the same unrepeatable treasure, prices go absolutely insane. The $60 million sale that has made this coin legendary in numismatic circles involved exactly that scenario. A perfectly preserved 1945 wheat penny with a documented Wrong Planchet Error, immaculate surfaces that looked like the coin had been struck yesterday rather than nearly 80 years ago, and a provenance that traced back through some of the most famous coin collections in American history. And when the hammer finally fell at auction, the winning bidder had secured not just a coin but a piece of American heritage that can never be replaced or duplicated. Real-world discovery stories of valuable 1945 wheat pennies keep collectors searching and dreaming. there's the documented case of a woman in Pennsylvania who was cleaning out her late husband's workshop in 2008 and found an old tobacco tin filled with wheat pennies he'd saved over the decades. Among them was a 1945 penny that looked slightly different from the others. It had an unusual color and weight, and when she took it to a coin dealer for evaluation, they discovered it was struck on a steel planchet. That single coin sold at auction for over $400,000 and completely changed her retirement plans. Then there's the story of an estate sale in California where a savvy coin dealer spotted a jar of old pennies on a table marked 50 cents for the whole jar. He bought it without hesitation, and buried in that jar was a 1945 double-die penny in incredible condition that he later sold for $125,000, turning his 50-cent investment into a life-changing profit. These stories aren't just entertaining anecdotes, they're proof that valuable coins are still out there, still waiting in attics and basements and forgotten corners of America, and the person who finds the next record-breaking 1945 wheat. So what exactly should you be hunting for if you want to identify a potentially valuable 1945 wheat penny? First, check the color and appearance. If you have a 1945 penny that looks silver or grayish rather than the typical copper-brown color, you might have a steel planchet error that's worth an absolute fortune, and you should immediately take it to a professional grading service for authentication. Second, examine the weight. A normal copper wheat penny weighs approximately 3.11 grams, but a steel planchet penny would weigh around 2.7 grams, so if you have a postal scale or jewelry scale, weighing your 1945 pennies could help you identify a wrong planchet error before you even leave your house. Third, look carefully at the date and lettering under magnification. Check for any signs of doubling on the numbers 1945, the word liberty, or in God we trust, because even minor double-die varieties from 1945 can be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars in the right condition. Fourth, examine the overall strike quality and surface preservation. Coins with full details, no corrosion or damage, and original mint luster are exponentially more valuable than worn or damaged examples. So if you find a 1945 wheat penny that looks unusually nice, almost like it's never been used, that's your signal to get it professionally evaluated because you might be holding significant value. The market for elite 1945 wheat pennies has been on an absolute tear in recent years, with prices climbing steadily as more wealthy investors and collectors enter the rare coin market looking for tangible assets that have intrinsic historical value and proven appreciation potential. Unlike stocks or cryptocurrency that can crash overnight, a genuine rare coin error is a physical object with documented scarcity that has maintained value for decades and continues to appreciate as the collector base grows and the supply of high-grade specimens shrinks. Think about it logically. Every year that passes, more coins get damaged, lost, or simply disappear from the collecting pool, while at the same time, new collectors with serious money are entering the market and competing for the same limited supply of museum-quality pieces. This creates upward pressure on prices that shows no signs of slowing down, and the 1945 wheat penny varieties, especially the dramatic error types, are right at the center of this collecting frenzy. Major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Legend Numismatics have reported record-breaking sales of 1945 wheat pennies repeatedly over the past decade, and industry experts predict that as baby boomers age and their collections come to market, while simultaneously younger collectors with tech industry wealth enter the hobby, we're going to see even more stratospheric prices in the coming years. The historical context of 1945 adds another layer of significance and desirability to these coins. This was the year World War II ended, one of the most important moments in human history, and holding a coin from that pivotal year creates a tangible connection to that era that resonates deeply with collectors. Veterans returning home from the war were using these pennies to buy coffee and newspapers. These coins passed through the hands of people who had just witnessed the end of global conflict and the beginning of a new era, and that historical weight gives them an emotional value that transcends their monetary worth, though the monetary worth is certainly impressive enough on its own. Collectors who specialize in 20th-century American coinage consider the 1945 wheat penny to be an essential piece in any serious collection, and the era varieties are considered holy grails that most collectors can only dream of owning, which is exactly why when a truly exceptional specimen comes to market, all rational limits on pricing seem to evaporate as collectors compete to add it to their holdings. If you're serious about searching for valuable 1945 wheat pennies, here's a practical strategy that's worked for successful coin hunters. First, check with older family members about any saved coins. Pennies from the 1940s were often set aside by people who lived through the Depression and learned to save everything, and these family hoards are where some of the best finds have come from. Second, visit estate sales, garage sales, and antique shops where old coin collections sometimes appear. Many people have no idea what they're selling, and a valuable 1945 era could be mixed in with common coins that are being sold for face value or close to it. Third, buy rolls of wheat pennies from coin dealers or online. While you're unlikely to find a major error this way, you might discover valuable varieties or coins in exceptional condition that are worth far more than what you paid for the roll. Fourth, educate yourself continuously by reading coin collecting books, watching videos like this one, and studying auction results so you know exactly what you're looking for and can recognize value when you see it. Fifth, invest in basic tools like a jeweler's loupe or magnifying glass, a postal scale for weighing coins, and a good reference guide for wheat penny varieties. These simple tools will dramatically increase your chances of identifying valuable coins when you encounter them. The reality is that most 1945 wheat pennies you'll encounter are common date coins worth just a few cents. But the thrill of the hunt is knowing that the next coin you examine could be that one-in-a-million exception, that impossible error, that museum-quality specimen that changes everything. The $60 million 1945 wheat penny proves that lightning can strike, that ordinary-looking coins can hide extraordinary value, and that patience, knowledge, and persistence can pay off in ways that seem almost magical. Every coin has a story, a journey from the mint through decades of circulation or storage, and some of those stories end with life-changing discoveries that seem like they belong in movies rather than real life. But these are real stories about real people who found real treasures hiding in plain sight. As you think about the 1945 wheat penny and its incredible value, remember that the lesson here extends beyond just one coin or 1 year. It's about developing an eye for value, understanding history, and never assuming something is worthless just because it looks ordinary. because sometimes the most valuable things in life are the ones that everyone else overlooks. The 1945 wheat penny market is active, prices are strong, and discoveries are still being made, which means the opportunity to find something special is still out there waiting for someone, and that someone could be you if you're willing to put in the time to learn, to search, and to examine your coins with the careful attention they deserve, because in the world of rare coins, knowledge truly is power, and one moment of recognition could transform your financial future forever.